Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Atkinson, and today I will be presenting on the work my team and I have done as a part of Seismic. Seismic stands for Sloan Equity and Inclusion in STEM Introductory Courses, and you can learn more about them at seismicproject.org. Unfortunately, institutions of higher education have historically and systematically excluded students with marginalized identities, especially in STEM. While many universities have now issued statements and policies on diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is important to evaluate whether or not these policies actually create a more inclusive and equitable campus. For this project, my research team and I sought to understand and analyze diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice practices, or DEIJ practices, at a university. This Research One university is public and located in the Midwestern United States. We looked at all programs, policies, and other practices related to DEIJ and had two main goals we wished to accomplish. The first was to map this university's institutional diversity practices by tracing and critically examining all existing efforts for undergraduate STEM. Secondly, we also wanted to uncover underlying definitions of DEIJ and how they are operationalized in these efforts or practices. This allows us to identify if a given practice truly leads to diversity and equitable outcomes. To guide our efforts, we made use of the Disability Critical Race Theory framework, also known as DisCrit, which builds off of critical race theory. DisCrit gives us the ability to identify power structures within universities, analyze the social construction of race, abilities, and other aspects of identity, and investigate racism and ableism. We utilized a mapping method to form our institutional map, which is a three-stage process. We first created an inventory of the university's DEIJ practices using information available on their websites and reports. We then qualitatively analyzed each of the practices in this inventory and created categories of the different practices in order to understand the nature of them. We created two sets of categories, one that identifies the type of practice, such as programs, events, and policies, and one that identifies the main goal or focus of the practice, such as education or inclusion. Finally, we created a visual representation of this analysis of diversity practices in order to effectively display our findings. We used different colors to indicate the different types of diversity practices and the different goals on the map. Our team was able to identify 23 separate DEIJ practices in the STEM departments working to support students who are part of a minority group or non-dominant group. Overall, there were 11 programs, 3 events, 2 policies, and 7 other forms of practice. After this, we identified 5 separate goals for what the practices wanted to achieve. First, there was the goal of education, in which the programs, events, or policies focus on expanding faculty, stakeholders, and students' knowledge of DEIJ issues. Then there was also advocacy, which aimed to advocate for non-dominant students in order to make them feel both heard and supported. The inclusivity category includes practices that work to include non-dominant students in university operations. Other efforts work towards student success, helping students succeed academically, personally, and career-wise. Finally, the largest group was institutional reformation, which includes practices that work to change existing structures, policies, programs, and events to promote DEIJ efforts. Overall, our first level of analysis indicates that this public university appears to have several different types of DEIJ practices that address issues by focusing on different goals. However, we have yet to analyze these institutional diversity practices for their outcomes in order to evaluate their effectiveness and therefore role in truly creating equitable higher education spaces. To get to this point, there is still work to be done. For example, we need to interview the stakeholders, faculty, and students and qualitatively analyze these interviews. In addition, we have to look at the efforts present in our institutional mapping more closely to determine if they are actually effective at what they set out to do. We will use quantitative data like representational data to understand the impact of these programs. Finally, we also plan to design surveys and send out to students and faculty to assess the overall success of this university's efforts, which include experiences both in and out of the classroom. Looking forward, future research may take a closer look at which types of efforts are best for supporting students from minoritized groups, as well as how to motivate people to invest in these efforts. Thank you for listening to my poster presentation on the work we've been doing. Again, if you want to learn more, you can go to seismicproject.org. Have a great day.